Liverpool have been quiet in the transfer window this summer. However, that looks like it's finally going to change with just a few hours left, with the signing of Federico Chiesa nearing closer by the reports of Fabrizio Romano. In this video, we're going to look at why Chiesa is an interesting signing for Liverpool, but ultimately can provide good depth and be a good risk for them to make. So let's get into it. Now, I think this transfer has to be looked at in many different ways. At first, Federico Chiesa has been thrown out at Juventus by new manager Thiago Motta, and it's quite clear that he is not in their plans in the future, so it could be a market opportunity for someone to buy him. He also does clearly have quality. He's not going to be a guaranteed star for Liverpool, at least when he comes in, but a few years ago Chiesa was one of the most exciting wingers in the world, and for the price that Liverpool could get him for, looking around 15 million euros, which is about 12-13 million pounds, it kind of makes sense to take a risk on a player that has that much upside. Now, obviously, while looking at a player that's ultimately 12 million pounds going to be quite cheap in today's market, and someone that hasn't necessarily got along with the players and manager at Juventus recently, you have to factor in that maybe the performances haven't been there as well. And a lot of Juventus fans have said that in the last few years he's been very inconsistent, and while he definitely is a good player on his day, the big injuries that he has picked up in the last few years have definitely halted his progression, not only his time on the pitch, but also it seems to be his care for the pitch as well. A lot of people have said that he's had bad attitude problems before. Now, the good thing about this is that clearly Liverpool are a very well organised side and have a very good structure within the club. I'm sure they will not let anyone think they are bigger than that club, and they will appropriately deal with these players if they are. So I think Chiesa will definitely get brought down to earth when he comes into Liverpool if this is to happen, and you won't really get these problems because Liverpool are a team fighting on all fronts and one of the best in the world. Another thing is that even last season, where Chiesa was playing in a role maybe he didn't like as much, playing in that secondary striker role just behind Vlahovic, and he still got 9 goals and 3 assists, which I know is not the best output in the world, but Liverpool have had a record of making players who have medium to average output and exploding them with brilliant attacking play, and I think we've seen how good their attacking play is still this season under Arne Slot. Now, first of all, Liverpool are making this signing, or they look to, because they definitely need some backup players in the wing position going forward. Diogo Jota has obviously been a mainstay up front and can also cover on that left wing position, but he has injury concerns before, and people like Darwin Núñez are not necessarily the most comfortable within the squad. There is also players like Gakpo who have had good games but also really bad games, and with some of these players being quite inconsistent, I think it makes sense to just bring another player in. Now, Chiesa, obviously we've mentioned it, is very versatile. He can play on both wings, so he can play even deeper on the wing positions because that is kind of how they do it in Serie A, but he can also play as that secondary striker role if you need him to, can come in and make them runs. And that's the most important thing, is that trying to fit this player within the team, and Liverpool do like very transitional based, high paced players that can go on the break. We saw it in their first goal against Brentford where they broke on the corner and passed it to Luis Diaz, who took his finish brilliantly. Now, they're also very good in settled possession, but they're very good at getting a lot of players in the box very quickly and being very good at getting space for their key players such as Trent and Salah. Now, Chiesa is obviously not going to hit the levels of these players, and he doesn't need to. He's just going to be a squad player and can provide good amount of coverage on both of these flanks. And something that he is really good at is this progressive nature. He is very good at picking the ball from deep, even in central areas or on the wing, and going past a player in a good dribbling 1v1 and making the run through into the attack, which is something that Liverpool do have a lot of and look for a lot in their team. You can see this by even last year, where he had a poor year for Chiesa's standards, getting around 2.9 progressive passes per 90, so he's making them through balls, but more importantly 4.5 progressive carries. He's very much a ball to feet player that can run off the back of players as well, but also will happily take himself in a 1v1, winning 1.4 successful take-ons per 90, which is quite high. He is also receiving a lot of progressive passes. Now, progressive passes is when the ball is moved over 15 yards in the attacking line, so towards the opponent's goal, that reaches a player, and he's receiving a lot of these, which means he's making them runs in behind and his teammates are finding him. And if you just look at the statistics by Chiesa in these progressive stats throughout his career at Juventus, they've always been very high, with his carries being around the 4 to 5 mark throughout his whole career, and the passes being around the 2 to 3 mark, and actually 2.8 is what he got last year, was actually the lowest he ever had, usually reaching about 3.5 range as well. So Chiesa is definitely a progressive monster that will help Liverpool in these transitional threats, which they do love, and he is very quick still, might have lost a little bit of that due to the injuries he's picked up, and he can be quite physical going past players if they go in hard on him. And something that is quite clear, that he is still a very explosive player in the final third. He has had a lot of shot creating actions per season season around the 3 to 4 to 5 mark, and last season he got around 4.88 shot creating actions per 90, which actually is one of the best he has ever done, but around about average of where he has been getting the years before, which puts him in the top 1% of players in Europe. And a shot creating action is someone that is even going past a player or creating a chance that leads to a shot for his team, so he could also be the one taking the shot. And sometimes he probably is taking too many shots because he has around 3 shots per game, and that is about average for his whole career. When he was at Florentine he had around 4, and it's kind of gone down to 2 at Juventus, but now moved back up to 3, which is probably a lot, but you kind of want your wingers having that amount of shots per game, so I think that's probably a good thing overall. And what Liverpool like with their strikers and attackers in front of goal is actually being very clinical and getting good shots away. And from the stats perspective, he does seem quite clinical because he overperforms XG in 4 out of the last 5 seasons, and the other one he barely played because of injury. And even though it's still quite close to it, which I think is actually probably a better thing because it means he's not necessarily getting completely lucky, or having around a 2 XG more than it than he's had in a few years could show he has that potential to even be better at finishing when he gets consistent great chances. Now overall, you have to look at this in the different ways. Like I said, he can be very versatile. He can play on either side. He can back up for Salah, he can back up for Diaz on the left, or even back up for Jota up front if you need to. And for the price around £12 million, you can't argue with someone that's going to give you some players that can play in that position. I think things such as his build-up play and his link-up play is particularly quite good and can work with teams like Liverpool. And I also think his ability to be really good on a 1v1 and cutting in on either wing is also something that they look for a lot. Now there is concerns such as maybe he isn't very physical, which could cause him a concern overall. He's quite good when he's got the ball, but overall if the ball's up in the air, I don't expect him to really win the header. He does shoot a lot in games and sometimes shoots a lot from distance, which could be why his XG is so low and he scores more than it. Him shooting a lot from distance where a couple go in is going to make him look a lot better than his XG suggests, which could frustrate Liverpool fans overall. You also can't look at this signing that why are not a lot of other teams going in for him, because different situations are a different circumstance. I think Liverpool are one of the only teams set up to prepare for someone like Chiesa, who apparently has attitude issues and has fell out of favour at Juventus. And a lot of big teams can't really afford to have a player that's going to be within the squad who isn't going to be happy like that. Liverpool can, and I think he would understand him not playing every game within their great squad, especially going forward. I also think with him having a very attacking, explosive style will benefit from a team like Liverpool, who do play very crazy, great attacking football. And he's not someone that needs to start and hit the ground running. Not every signing needs to be like that. Sometimes you just got to pad out the squad and find better solutions for problems you may have in the future down to injury or other circumstance. So overall, I think for the price, it is a really good signing. Now, I don't know the wages on this deal, and he is on a very expensive wages, like 170k, but I'm sure he will understand that he might have to take a pay cut in order to leave because he is not wanted anymore. And although he is 27 on the older age, or almost 27, I still think you can get a lot out of him in the next few years to make him very viable and quite a fun signing for Liverpool in the future. I think they will like him. Now let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you want me to do any other videos on any other Liverpool players, let me know. And I thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.